Thank you. Back to you.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I thought that was me echoing for a minute. And I'm looking forward to continued learning. I've studied the video from the first two sessions that you had. So looking forward to jumping in and learning.
Okay, you're muted. Can someone help unmute maybe? You're all muted. I can't hear you talking.
Okay. You were muted before. Can you unmute yourself? Or sorry, can you repeat what you just said? I'm going to leave you unmuted, and then everybody else just unmute yourself when you're ready to speak.
Yes. So I invited Mary. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce the name. Is it Marie or Mary or? But
yes. Yes, that's good. Thank you. It's Madi. It's like a double D.
Oh, Madi. Okay. Hi, Madi.
Hi, Christiane. How are you? Today's my first day also with the group, but I did get an opportunity to take a look at the 3-hour webinar, and it was really, really interesting. I'm new to Athena. I actually officially started in January and got my certificate in coaching in February. I'm really looking forward to seeing, what is going to transpire today. I got a lot of good background from your information during the 3-hour video. One of the things that I noticed that attracted me to Athena was the fact that I think the Athena group has already made the power shift and really kind of letting go of power over others into being powerful together. And so I'm interested in learning about how the implementation of the for-purpose enterprise is really going to concretely, or how it might concretely change the Athena group. So looking forward to hearing what's going to transpire today.
Great. Thanks a lot, Madi. Faith.
Good morning, everyone. Makes my heart happy to see all your faces and people that have been hanging out with me for a long time, and those of you that are new. And I think I'll just check in by saying my heart is happy to see all of your faces.
Thanks, Faith. Kate?
Good morning. I also enjoy seeing all your faces since it's so rare that we have the opportunity to be in the same room together. So I'm excited to continue this conversation and learn more and explore further options together.
Greg?
I think you mean me. It's Devin. I've got 2 first names though, so totally understandable.
Okay.
No big deal. How are you, Christiane? It's totally fine. Nice to see you again. I was on the first call, and you just blew my mind. I loved it. This is the stuff that I geek out on. So I love this. I'm excited to keep talking about it. So thanks for having me. I'm just happy to be here with everyone.
Cool. Thanks, Devin. Michelle?
Hi, I'm Michelle. I'm been with Athena for several months now, so I'm relatively new, and I've been learning language of spaces with Christiane and Peter and Faith and Tanya and Larissa, and so this is really more of the stuff in the direction that I'm interested in. Also, I am looking forward to the concrete pieces so that we can actually feel the realization of this new system. So that's where I'm at.
Excuse me. Thanks, Michelle. Tanya?
Well, good morning, everybody. And it's nice to see everybody's faces. It is rare. And I've just had emails, or I've been writing about some of you or reading about some of you. So it's really nice. I think like Michelle, I've been learning this, and it's exciting to just see it taking shape a little bit more. So I'm looking forward to that.
Thanks, Tanya. Okay, so I have someone with the name of Faith Trimble, but it does look really distinctly different than Faith, because this gentleman has a beard, and I unfortunately don't know who that is. So,
It's me,
here you
Paul.
go,
Hi.
Paul. Oh, hi, Paul.
Hi.
You're tuning. Can I invite you to a brief check-in?
Yes, I'll keep it brief. Just sort of been up early working and looking forward to this. Sorry I had to miss part of the last one, and that's it. Beautiful sunny day here. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Paul. Okay, Megan. You're muted.
Of course I knew this. Hi, thank you. And thank you for the reminder to unmute myself. I am Megan Picard. I've been around Athena for a very long time, since before Athena. So I just figure I'm just going to follow Faith wherever she goes, and it works out nicely. However, I have been off in my own world for the past couple of months, so I'm really happy to be here and see, holy moly, so many new faces. So yeah, great. And I look forward to learning more from you, Christiane.
Thank you, Megan. Okay, over to you, Jane.
There. So, hi, good morning. I was here for the first one and really enjoyed it. So I'm just dipping my toes back in. And I'd love to learn more about language of spaces, especially. I'm really curious about that. Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Then we need to do something about it. Okay. Amber, your check-in, please.
Good morning. I'm doing pretty well, but I'm a little bit sick, and I'm excited to have this conversation. And specifically, I'm coming off of attending a training that really focused a lot for me on like racial equity. And so I'm bringing that straight into, and probably some of that energy straight into this call, and wanting to, you know, see kind of how it plays out, and like learn more about well, I'm not sure exactly what we're focusing on, but I think there's a piece of that in here. So yeah, I'm good. It's really nice to see Ava and everyone else here.
Thank you, Amber. Now, one row down for me, Larissa. Hey there. Okay.
Hello, I am here.
Hi.
And thank you for calling my voice in, and I apologize that I don't have video operational today. I have been with Athena since 2013. I am walking this path and learning in ways that have already been named and are very joyful to me, especially the language of spaces. And the question that I'm holding for today, and I've been keen on it for a while, is what do people need to choose into self-organization? Like specifically, what information kind of trips that wire for folks? And I'll be listening to the conversation because I usually figure out what I need by listening to what others need. So thank you so much, and looking forward to our session today.
Great, thanks a lot, Larissa. Lori. We can't see you.
Hi, hi everybody. I've been with Athena for I think about 1.5 years. I've had the opportunity to work with a number of these lovely people on this call today. My primary discipline and area of expertise is Lean, or the Toyota management system. And some of the things that have always really attracted me to it were the two principles of continuous improvement and respect for people. And one of the things that really attracts me about this self-organizing, purpose-driven thing is it's very consistent with that, but really takes it to a whole new level, I think, of putting the power where the information is, and the people closest to the customer, the frontline workers, always have the most intelligence really about the system. So there's just something about this that feels like a missing piece that can really add on to my discipline. And I'm so excited that we get to learn by doing it together, by helping to build it at Athena.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lori. You know that we don't see you, just hear you.
Yeah, you don't want to see me today.
Oh.
I'm not video capable.
Okay, thank you, Lori. So Ava, you dropped a note in the chat, but are you going to come online too to verbalize and let us hear your check-in, or would you rather not?
Hey everybody, this is Ava.
Hey.
I'm just excited to be a part of this whole process. I have just enjoyed just my time. I've only been a part of Athena for like, I guess a couple of weeks. And so well, maybe a week, I don't know. I'm just excited. I'm excited about being a part of the process. I'm excited for what's next. I'm excited about the collaborations and, meeting everyone and seeing what steps we can go to further our purpose. Because I think the for purpose enterprise is something that's been needed for working people and for professional goals too. So I think this is a good time for me at least, to jump in and get my feet wet and see where I can make the hugest impact.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ava.
You're welcome.
And there is a telephone number and a phone receiver, nice old phone receiver. So I really don't know who to invite in, but the person behind the phone receiver, would you care to check in? I don't know if this is intentional, that we don't, there you go.
Hi, this is Austin. I'm sorry, I don't have video yet. I'm staying with my grandmother in Honolulu taking care of her. So I'm just walking in the dark to a cafe. So I'm doing really well. I'm very excited to be on this call. I'm I'm sorry for all the background noise. I'm on a main thoroughfare. I'm coming with the same kind of lens as Amber, I think, this morning. I'm really interested. I've been thinking a lot about white supremacy culture and how various organizational structures perpetuate that. So I'm really interested to kind of weave that into how I'm thinking about for purpose enterprise, and how we're thinking about it. Yeah, and just kind of have a dialogue about that as well, where relevant. So thank you.
Thanks a lot, Austin. Wow, Honolulu, not envious at all. So how awesome. My check-in, it's just amazing to have this diversity of faces, voices, and energies in the room for people like us who, or probably most of you, work a lot online and on Zoom. You get used to sensing into that even through the screen. And I'm really excited about our call today. Happy to see faces again and new faces. So I really think this is exciting. And I'm just thankful for this, and handing over to Peter for his check-in, and then moving forward with what we want to experience and bring our curiosity to. Over to you, Peter.
There we go. Thanks, Christiana. Yeah, it's really awesome to see so many people here. Been looking forward to this. Yeah, my day so far, so it's 5 p.m. Where I am here in Holland. And it seems like complexity has been the theme for me today. Been dealing with so much of it in a fun way, but just trying to do the bookkeeping for Evolution at Work. I don't know how we got to it. Just 5 people and just as many bank accounts, different currencies. So dealing with that, and then the whole complexity of the work we're doing. And well, the other end of complexity is clarity. So that we'll be trying to bring in today. So what is the actual journey towards an FBE? It will take a while to get us, for you to get there. And so Christiane and I have been looking together with Faith. So what would be the steps in that journey to take, and what could be your contributions in that if you choose to? So I will be doing a PowerPoint presentation. So I understand that not everybody is here on video, so not everybody might be able to follow along that well. We have to see how to navigate that. So I'll say a little bit more about that journey and what exactly are the roles of Christiane and me, and also Tom Thomason in this. And before I want to dive into it, I would give the opportunity to Faith to introduce and to say a little bit more about why we're here today, why she wants to go into this journey, and explain a little bit around that.
Thanks, Peter. And in many ways, I think most of you know why I want to be on this journey, but I'm going to say it again. This idea of a consulting practice called the Athena Group is, where do I even start? This has been a giant experiment for me, and it all started with the idea that I can shape my work around my life and not my life around my work. And we've had several evolutions after that as more and more of you have joined us. And I still hold, after almost 20 years now, I still hold really dear to me this idea that it's possible to have an organization that's profitable, does wonderful work in the world, we're colleagues, and everyone has clear understanding of what's theirs to do. They're leaders and they're followers, and we are able to evolve ourselves as human beings, and in relationship with each other, do our work together in a more evolved way. My older sister tells me, Faith, the world doesn't work that way. And I deeply believe that it can. And one of the reasons I'm so happy to see all of your faces is because it's like, oh, maybe my sister's wrong. Maybe there is a group of people that can try this out. So this is the second time we've come together in this conversation to have a deeper understanding of what does it mean to be a self-organizing system, and what does that mean to us and individually? How do you show up in that, and are we prepared to do that? And it's work. It is work, I have to say. What does it mean to become a for-purpose enterprise? And what are ownership units, and how do we share those units? And then how do we organize under a holocratic kind of way of being? So those are 3 huge shifts that we're making. In some ways it's huge, in some ways it's not. I love that Madi, just being new, saw that we're already have made progress in that, even with a lack of a structure or a system to help us with that. And that's why I'm so excited that Evolution at Work, and then also Encode, is here to help us put in structure, because I've kind of been on my own pretending like I knew what I was doing or designing things on the fly and inviting some of you in on that journey as well. And it's, you know, sometimes some things work, some things don't. What we have done, I believe, over the last 20 years have developed a robust reputation and a book of work. And there's so much more that we could do if all of us can figure out why we are coming together and what is it that we want to deliver to the world together. And I'm just super excited to start that journey. I'll turn it back to Peter, who can start laying out what that journey is. I just want to say one other thing. There's a lot of you on the call right now, and I want you all to know that this is a learning journey, and there will be points in this journey where you'll have decisions to make. You know, where do you want to, what kind of relationship do you want to have with the Athena group? And it may be, you know, a distant relationship, and it may be a real intimate relationship as being like part of the organization itself and building out the organization itself. I just want you all to know that whatever you decide, it is fine with me. I don't have any attachment to what your decision is. And, you know, so I want you to be free in that, to like listen to like, oh, this is the direction. Where does it feel right for me to fit in? And wherever that is, I support that. I think that's it. Is there anything else, Peter, you wanted me to cover before I shift it over to you?
No, that was great. Thank you, Faith. Yeah, so next thing I want to do, like I said, is explain something about the journey. So let's say there's a lot of complexity. We have already done a little bit of sorting out. And then there's all that stuff we simply don't know yet. We also will not pretend that we know anything like that. So there's actually a whole lot for you guys to figure out. So what we did figure out is kind of the overall journey. So Christiana and I have been gone through that twice. We've launched 2 4-purpose enterprises by now. And the first one was also part of that, figuring out how that worked in the first place. So yeah, bear with me. There's a whole lot of complexity, a whole lot of information will be coming at you. And since there's so many of you, as much as possible, I would like to invite you to hold on to your questions until after the presentation. There will be plenty of time for Q&A. All right, so let me share my desktop here. All right, can you see that okay? No? Okay, do that again.
Yep.
That is better, I think. Okay. Just a second. There we go. So we're talking about today is what we've now informally called reinventing Athena. Really not so much restructuring Athena as in incremental change. This is really a big shift, actually 2 of them. Transformational. So this is not a journey where it's possible to do this incrementally, what is sometimes called first order change. This is really second order change, which you cannot do. These are really leaps. And that is what we believe the journey into self-organization is about. So a little overview of who's involved here. Like I said, we are here, Christiana and I, right now from Evolution at Work. And for clarity, Christiana's role is here in role as People Context Advisory. Tell a little bit more what People Context means later on. And then I'm here to talk about the organizational context and the overall structuring. And then actually also involved from ENCODE is Tom Thomason in his role of FB Advisory. Tom is not here today, but to be clear, any advisory will coming from ENCODE in Tom's role. And well, both Chrissy and I have a lot of background. We're structured ourselves as a for-purpose enterprise, so we can for sure answer any questions that come up, but we won't be doing the service delivery around it. So to start out with, getting to clarity, let's start with looking at what the current situation is to make that explicit. So there is something that Faith in one of our calls lovingly called the Athena bubble. And so there's some things going on. We have the Athena group, at least there's a legal entity, the LLC. And so Faith is equity member, as the operating agreement says. So she is a single shareholder and also at this moment in time holds the management power. So if she wants to, can make autocratic decisions. And then a number of you is involved with that as a non-equity member, so a party to the operating agreement, but not holding shares and none of the managerial responsibilities either, legally speaking. And then there's a number of subcontractors. All of them engaged as a consultant, doing consultancy work outside of the Athena group in the world. And so one of the things that came up in discussions is what exactly is the relation between Athena and consultants? And where do you want to shift that to? So there are at least two groups, subcontractors and non-equity members right now. And then the question becomes what does the Athena group want to be? What exactly is its purpose? Is that in relation to the consultants? So is that are the consultants actually customers of the Athena group, or are they working for the Athena group or in the Athena group? So there's some unclarity there that needs to be figured out. And since there's a big step, like I said, to become an FBE, and what we don't recommend for people who have little or no experience with holacracy is doing that in one go. So we really recommend taking an initial step. And step one is self-organizing the work. And this looks like actually more complexity compared to this, and probably in a way it is, but it's, I think, a necessary step to get to the next step, to more clarity, to sort things out. And I'm going to say more about it in terms of time, how this works. But just quickly, so step one is to introduce a new entity here displayed in orange, which is the actual organization. So that will run on holacracy. So the step there is for Faith to formally adopt holacracy, and thereby ceding her authority into the organization, into a holacracy constitution. And after that, everybody filling roles actually has authority in role to do the work of that organization. And what we'll be looking for is who is in for that, who is up for filling roles there. And for now, we'll call those group of people participants. And there can be overlap. Some of the non-equity members can be participants. Some of the subcontractors could be participants. But there's no must. You don't need to. It's up to you to choose if you want to play that game. And there needs to be a relationship for the participants for now, for the meantime, between them and the Athena group itself. And for that, we're going to draft an agreement of participation. I'm going to say more about that as well. And that is all needed to actually sort things out. So part of the work of that organization is sorting out things like, okay, what's the purpose of the organization before we start that? And then sorting things out of how to structure things going forward. How is the relation with the consultants to the Athena group? what's that exactly? What's the business model? All those kind of things. So that's the work of the organization. And then after that is then shifting into a full for-purpose enterprise after a period of time. And then hopefully, so you can see it looks all much cleaner and clearer, clearer boundaries. And then we can distinguish the three containers of the for-purpose enterprise: people context, organizational context, and legal context. So what the idea is here that the people that enter into step one, the participants, then be full members of the for-purpose enterprise. So in the people context, filling roles in the organizational context, and full legal members and taking part in the profits as well. And then the current thinking, but that might change. Like I said, it's up to you. There could be a community of consultants. That may be the purpose of the enterprise is to support them. So that in that case, the work of the organization would be to support that community of consultants. Of course, another option could be that all these consultants are actually part of the FPE and working in the FPE themselves. These are open questions. So the first step here, as we're thinking about it, is to start with a pre-governance phase. So that's the period of time starting today up until first governance. So and that is the period actually leading up to step one. And there's a couple of things to do there. First is simply people sharing and exploring. That's what this call is for, or at least to start doing that. It's sharing our concerns, our questions, our hopes, and exploring who is interested in playing this way. And then after a while, people who are interested in participating is participating in the purpose discovery. What is actually, what does Athena wants to be? So listening into that, and there'll be a process for that to help. But it's really to establish what is the purpose of the Athena group. And then a question that comes then up, who will be the participants in that scheme? Who will actually want to fill roles and take the ball forward into step one? And then is to, once we know who the participants are, we can draft an agreement of participation. So that's also to safeguard everybody's contributions. So it's not like anybody's being asked to participate for free. So we have ways of tracking contributions. So there will be an agreement that that details all of that. And once that's in place, then comes the moment to formally adopt the Holacracy Constitution, so that people who fill roles actually have authority. And then first governance, which would kick off step one. So a little bit more about that agreement of participation, what it's for and what will be in it. So first of all, we will capture the intent to form a for-purpose enterprise. And since it's not advisable to do it right away, starting a for-purpose enterprise, at least the intent to form that way over time will be captured formally. Then it will outline that the participants, so who will be filling roles up to that time, will be holding units in the for-purpose enterprise. So any contributions up till then will lead to units, and units are profit interests. So that's the idea. And like I said, it will also capture how inputs will be tracked to account for everybody's inputs, everybody's time and maybe even money investments until that time. And then it will also acknowledge and account for the history. So I can imagine that several of you have contributed to where Athena is today. Faith certainly has. And so all of that will be accounted for. And it's also to account for a very clean transition. So any loose ends will be tied up in that agreement. And which enables the possibility to go forward in a very clean way. So the roadmap we have in mind, again, based on what we know today. So first of all, what is not on here are dates. So different phases on here, there are no dates in here simply because we don't know the dates. It's all dynamic steering. Well, one date we have is today, our first call. So this is the first orange line to the left, which will start an exploratory phase. So like I said, it's people, it's us, you guys doing explorations, seeing who wants to play. And that coincides with the pre-governance phase that I just outlined. And so what this blue line down here represents is Athena in its current form. So in that period of time, there will not be any legal changes to the Athena group. It will also mean that for now, formally Faith will have autocratic power to change things. She also said, well, she probably will be needing to change a few things soon in order to make Athena viable. And of course, you will. There will be completely transparent. You will be here about that. And it's only when we arrive at the first governance line, the orange line, that Athena will be running on holacracy. So it's the first big shift, and that's the beginning of step one. And then there's a period of time leading up to the right of the slide, a transition date, transition into a for-purpose enterprise. So that will be another major step, a big step to take. And in the meantime, so it's again figuring out. The work of the organization will then be figuring out how to position itself, what actually its mission is in the world, its relation to consultants, etc. And then we're actually have a fork in the road here. We see two possibilities. One is called Athena Reinvented, which pretty much means that the current LLC will be reshaped. It will get a new operating agreement when it becomes a for-purpose enterprise. And the second one we call Athena Reborn, and that would mean a fresh restart, so not based on the current LLC, but really reincorporating. In conversation so far, it seems like Athena Reinvented is the most likely scenario, but we're not ruling anything out. Just so this is just showing possibilities. All right. So with that, I'll stop screen sharing. And so that's in a nutshell the roadmap and why we're here, what we want to do. So again, it's starting an exploration phase to see who would be up for fully participating in a for-purpose enterprise down the line, and join Faith in what she's setting out to do there.
Peter, can I just add something that I felt my assumption is that this could there's just a little point of clarity around the work of the work of Athena Reinvented. This is not so much about primarily saying how do we deliver the work to our clients. Like, you know, all of you have been engaged in delivering work to clients. It seems that the question is primarily more around how can the Athena group be a stable organization that will then enable everybody better to be delivering to the clients? And it is absolutely not clear yet if the delivery is actually part of the new organization or not. So the invitation, as I understand it, is not so much of how many consultants are going to be part of the new legal entity. It's more about who is willing to energize work inside the Athena group that will be a more stable and better core in order to grow the beautiful business that you are all making together. So I would just like to bring in something. There's some diaper changing work necessary. We call it diaper changing because it stinks. Nobody likes to do it, but you love the baby and you do it nonetheless. So this is the real nitty-gritty work that needs to get done in order to support the further growth, the growth of that. So I just wanted to bring that in. And I'm sure the rest will come in questions. Thank you, Peter.
Great. Thank you, Christiana, for that clarification. And the way I see it as well, it's on the one hand, looking at as diaper changing for sure. It's work that needs to be done. But then also, I think a really great opportunity for any of you who'd like to continue and be consultants in the field of self-organization to actually get the experience under your belt. Because in our experience, it's almost impossible to become a consultant in that field, an organizational consultant, and not having the actual experience. That generally doesn't work well. So it's that opportunity as well that's I think is on offer. Okay, so with that, I can imagine there are tons of questions people might have. I already see one question from Larissa.
Yeah.
So what distinguishes the path reinvented from reborn? What happens at that juncture? What is the pivot point? Why does it matter? How will we know? Yeah, the difference between the path that could be taken, so it's either one. So the question at some point will be, would it be necessary, does it make sense to make a completely fresh new start or not? Like I said, it's not the most likely scenario. I think the favorite one would be, well, take all the history that it has, let the LLC as it is, keep that running, but change its operating agreement. And another one, the path would be a completely fresh start that would actually, it's called reborn because Athena, the LLC, the legal entity, or anything that's in place right now would completely die. That's the other path. And then starting up something completely fresh from the ground up.
And something else, Peter, sorry, which I think needs to be answered for Larissa's question is the organization itself will figure that out.
Yep, exactly. Yep. So it's not certainly not up to us meaning Evolution at Work, to comment on it. We just say, well, these are the two options. What do you want to do? And I understand from Faith also that, of course, Faith has a voice in it, but she's opening that up. And it really depends on the participants, people who are putting time and energy in it, will have a voice in all of that. Okay, Larissa, did it answer your question?
Yeah, she said thank you there.
Okay, great. So next question from Paul. To what extent does the success of this require a stable group of individuals that are all reasonably equally committed to going through this process together, doing the dirty diaper changing over the long term? Well, as well, any endeavor, unless there is actually a small group of people that is committed, nothing will happen. I think speaking for Faith, what she said, well, she's tired of doing this alone. It is too much. She'd like to do this with more people. So the level of commitment of these people may vary a little bit. Doesn't mean that you have to be 100% committed. It could be 40%, as long as you're clear on that level of commitment. And because there are ways to deal with that, to fairly contribute for those level of commitments. It's not a problem if there's different levels there. But unless there is a stable group of individuals, I don't think this is going to happen. So that's crucial.
Can I add?
Oh yeah, of course.
And I think the level of engagement by the amount is not so much decisive, rather than the engagement or the alignment with the purpose of the organization. Mm-hmm. So you can be really highly purpose aligned and be in there with 20 or 30%. And that'll be fine, because the organization will use your 20 or 30% as a valuable resource for 1 or 2 roles, and others who might have 100% will have 5, 6, 7 roles. The really decisive thing is the connection, the purpose alignment. That makes a difference.
Yeah. So in my experience, enthusiasm is great, but doesn't get you very far. It's the commitment, the doing, the execution. That's important.
Christiane and Peter, can you talk a little bit more like what you mean by that purpose alignment? I think that might help.
Sure, Christiane.
Okay, so purpose alignment is one of the crucial capacities for individuals to be able to thrive in a self-organizing context. And what is meant by that is that you have a high consciousness level about what your personal purpose is, and the purpose of the organization, the Athena group, needs to be clear at any given moment. So a purpose is never perfect, it is never done, it is an evolutionary phenomenon, both personal and organizational. But purpose alignment is a capacity to consciously integrate the sense of purpose alignment into our everyday decisions, both in role and as a person. And if you have low resource time-wise, like, I don't know, maybe a day, average a day a week, which would come up to approximately 20% focus time, but you're absolutely completely energized by Athena's purpose. That's what the Athena group will need. Much better than having someone who is 80 or 100% and just says, it's just a job. So that won't work in a self-organizing context. So again, purpose alignment, and Tanya, you will learn a lot more about that in May. Purpose alignment is the capacity to be aware of your own purpose, have your conscious sense of resonance with the organization's purpose, and integrate that consciously into your day-to-day decision-making.
And I know there's some other questions, but I think a missing piece here to tie it all together is holacracy, right? I think many of us, we all probably, I don't know, okay, I'll speak for myself. I don't know about everyone else, but I have enough knowledge to just sort of be dangerous. I mean, I just know about it, right? I've read articles, I've read sort of the book, I've listened to a few webinars, but I don't really know, I don't know enough about it. So you use terms here that I've now started to kind of learn, but I don't really get, like governance and the participant agreement, and how will we go on this journey of actually learning what the hell holacracy is? Because that's, I think, an important component that I certainly don't have enough knowledge to be able to be like, yeah, that totally makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Peter?
Well, the different ways to go about it. We could have a separate call to go into that question. There's also a book about holacracy you could read. There's plenty of things you could do. So depending on how many people would like to get that question answered, just let us know what do you think would help you best. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, Peter. I thought you were done.
Go ahead.
But Evolution at Work, in its delivery with Language of Spaces, will introduce the practices. That's out of the question, right? So you're not going to be left alone with it.
No, certainly not. It's just the form in which we will do it is not fixed. It kind of depends on what makes sense.
Okay, Peter, there are more questions in the chat box.
Yep.
Megan?
Any idea? Yeah, let's do Laurie's questions first. Any idea about the level of effort participants will put in? No. So I'll simply share our own experience, and this is also what this is based on. So when we started, before we started ENCODE, we had a call like this, like something like 15 participants. And a lot of people were really enthusiastic. And some people contributed a little bit. But there were only 3 individuals, very clearly, that put in the actual work to move things forward. And that happened to be Tom Thomason, Christiana, and I. So we became then the founding members of Evolution at Work. So that's the process. A similar thing happened with ENCODE. And a similar thing happened with Evolution at Work. We put out the intent that we wanted to do something. People were excited. And then at the end, there was only a handful, group of people who actually put in the effort. So you'll simply see, you'll simply experience who that group is. So no sense in trying to predict anything. No sense in requesting anything, nothing like, okay, you have to predict yourself at the outset how much time you will put in. If you want to do that, you will put time in, otherwise you will have other priorities. Let reality tell us that. There will simply, in a few weeks from now, less people here than there are right now, probably. The thing is, what is needed is to have a handful of people wanting to move this forward. And like Faith said, it is really no judgments there. It's an invitation to play.
I would maybe also shortly, I forgot, follow up on just one quick comment on Tanya's question about governance. So governance is the distributed authority process, integrative decision-making process, with which the organization is governed. The development of the organization and the structure and the definition of the structure and policies and roles and circles, and there is a clear process, a governance process called integrative decision-making process, which is one of the core processes that holds the distributed authority system in place when practicing self-organization a la holacracy.
Yeah, and that's the big shift here. So by adopting the Constitution, what Faith will do, from that point on, is no longer autocratic decision-making on Faith's part. So it's a really big shift. It's actually seeding all of that authority into the organization and distributing that. Okay, Megan's question. You mentioned that changes may need to be made first to make Athena viable, I assume, for taking this journey. Well, it's actually a parallel track. So it's not really a prerequisite for starting this journey. It's what we're saying is that parallel to these explorations, Athena will just continue its business as it has been for a while. And any changes that need to be made to, for whatever reason, Faith will make those decisions. And like I said, up till the point where holacracy will be adopted, it's Faith has the power to do so, and whatever she will need to do, she will still will simply be doing. And so this is simply being very transparent about it. Faith wants to say something.
Abby, I saw your hand.
Oh, it's okay. I can wait till Faith is.
You just said Faith. I'll just wanted to say that I'll come back to you. I'm sorry.
Abby.
I was going to bring up a different point. So Faith, if you wanted to speak to this one, go ahead.
All right.
All right.
I just wanted to respond to the autocratic behavior that I might have. So, I'll know how I have behaved in the past, and I am not autocratic. But the structure we have in place is I hold all the decision-making power. So I needed just to make that really clear to Peter and Christiane. As we're moving towards this, we're making this transition, I may need to make some business decisions, but I'm holding that very seriously and lightly, in that I don't want to make decisions now that alter all of your interest of moving forward in this new way. So I know I have that power. I will use that power judiciously and lightly, and I'm paying attention to this transition. So I just wanted to add that onto it. So it didn't sound like, oh, Faith is going to make all these last minute decisions and really F things up.
Faith, I would think of it as what, for example, transpired in January, right? You're looking at the books, you're saying, okay, this quarter is really tight. We need to make some shifts and then you, right? That's how I would think of the power that you hold right now, is kind of looking at that and making sure, like, okay, we're in a healthy place. We can pay our bills. We've got enough revenue stream coming in. What do we need to be doing in order to build our revenue stream? Like, those are kind of what I think of the power that you hold right now, and that you need to make adjustments to see what's happening sort of in our work.
That's exactly right, Tanya. I mean, that's top of my mind right now. I think we all know that our business model at the moment is not the accurate business model. If, the profit that we're able to make doesn't sustain us through downturns, we need to make changes in the business model. So the question I'm holding is, are there any changes I need to make in the business model before we move into this transition, or can we wait and do that together? My preference is to wait and do that together, but if I need to make decisions, in that way, to make sure we're still an entity to transition into something else, I will need to make those decisions. Does that make sense to people? Any concerns about that? Thank you.
Okay, great. Abby.
Hi there. I'm just going to throw my voice in rather than typing in the chat. I hope that's okay.
Sure.
I just wanted to, first of all, just acknowledge sort of the poignancy of this conversation and the moment of this conversation, and the complexity and the reality of the world in which we are all doing the good work in, and Faith's leadership in creating the structure that is known as Athena now, and the contributions that some on the call have made over time, and those of us that are new, that I know that I'm pulled to Athena because of the conversation I had with Faith, and what's on the side, and the people I've met here, and just the community that exists, and the vision that is out there, and the sort of courage that I see being taken by the community and Faith and Kate and others to say, hey, willing to open this up and see what might transpire, including with people that are new to you like me. So thank you. I feel moved to state that. I have two questions. The first one I think might be easier to answer than the second one, but let's see. First one is, how long in your experience does this process take with this sort of size of organization. And then the second one has to do with sort of structures and origins of models that we're using, and the question of social equity. And in the conversation that I had with Youth Faith, sort of coming into this, in sort of the intent to move beyond some sort of patriarchal and colonial and sort of binary structures that are not really working for us in the world today. How do we enter a journey together, and what's required if we're not going to use a leadership or organizational or transformative change model that actually itself perpetuates deep inequities? So I'm just wondering what arises in terms of what is behind this and what we might bring into it that sort of moves us beyond those binary places that we need to be beyond and model and facilitate work in as we go forward. Thank you.
Yeah, great questions. Starting with the second is a really big one. The first one, how long does it take? That's exactly what I'd like to not predict. I do understand the question. You don't want to go either into an endless process, which is, by the way, not what this is at all. It's not going to be an endless process. I do not expect this to be done in 2 weeks. So it's in the order of weeks or a couple of months, I would expect. But there's no reason to drag this on. It's really the first phase of this. As soon as you have the sense, and we simply have to see when that happens, you will see there's a smaller group of people who seems to be really committed and wanting to move this forward. So I would be surprised if it would be less than 4 weeks. But you never know. It might be very quick. I don't know. I think the important here is not try, because this is actually part of the practice of self-organization, not trying to predict anything. So what is up to you as an individual in saying, well, I have my own limits. I am willing to go into this for 3 months. And after 3 months, if nothing has happened, I'm out. That's something you are at liberty to do. But there's no way for me or any of us, I think, to predict the future. We simply don't know. But like I said, it's going to be a overseeable amount of time. Certainly before the end of the year, absolutely. And then when it's time, and then the second question, when it's time to actually shift into a for-purpose enterprise, that might take longer. You actually need to get some experience with holacracy for a while. Again, not possible to predict how long. But I don't see that happening very far before the end of this year. That would not be a good thing to do. Oh, and then the other question is really exciting, I think, too, because that's also dear to me. It's actually the point of doing all of this to move beyond all of those structures that you just mentioned, that actually the cause of most of the problems we're seeing today. That's especially for me a driver to do this. And that's also why it is a leap. It's based on completely different principles that we can go into, which has everything to do with equity. It's actually constructed in a way that everybody plays by the same rules. So that's also why there's no employees, for instance, in a for-purpose enterprise, because employees would play by different rules than the employers or the founders, or however you want to call it. So that's baked into the structure of a for-purpose enterprise, that there's no privileged groups. There's no hierarchy anymore as we know it. It's completely gone. So which on average is easier for men to navigate, as we know it, as for women. So that's gone. And And there are more of that that's actually baked into how an FB is structured. So it will actually be pretty hard to do things that you'd like to avoid if you play that well. And so this is a short answer to a very big question. There's so much more I'd like to cover about it. We could easily cover a separate call on this if you'd like to. Christiane, want to say anything more about this?
No, this was more to the one before. It's like, how long will it take, and how long do I want to commit, and what will happen? The more I'm speaking very general. The more you engage and do, the faster it'll go.
Yep.
It's just nobody's going to force you to do anything. If nobody, starts doing something, nothing happens. That's just the way it is.
Yep. And just an example, so it went very quickly with Evolution at Work. I think that didn't take long. With ENCODE, it took longer because we were all so waiting until market conditions were right until we started, so that took longer. So it's more about the approach taking here, dynamic steering, letting reality inform you than trying to predict anything.
I typed this, but can you talk a little bit, because I know for me, Christiane, there's several moments where you've really enlightened me around some of the tenets of self-organization, and I wonder if it would be worth sort of just highlighting some of those, because I think it feeds into how things will organically shape. It's some of those. What are some of those things that will arise from each of us, or need to arise from each of us in terms of capacities, that then inform how the team sort of, or the group, or this organization kind of takes shape? Does that make sense?
I'm not sure I understand the word tenants.
Well, what are the capacities, I think, of self-organization that then actually those capacities will enable this to actually happen, or form or not form, whatever, it'll inform it. But I think those are the things that need to light up within us, right?
Yeah.
And you mean tenets, right? TENETS?
Yeah. And
Okay, because I looked up tenants and I'm like, hey, what does she mean? Okay, so if we talk about the capacities, that's what's at the core of Evolution at Work's work. And that is from a decade of experience to have understood what it is that we individuals as capacities personal capacities, what helps us thrive in the self-organizing context. And especially if you've watched the self-organization call that we had last time, it already emerged there that it is really crucial to understand the differentiation between the organizational context and the people context. So differentiation means the capacity to consciously direct attention to a specific perspective, differentiated, what is personal, what is organizational, and further differentiation, and to learn in the way we deal with our tensions, meaning with all our impulses to move things forward. Tension is a very generic word in the self-organizing realm. Attention has no value. It's just simply the gap between what is and what could be the future potential. So whenever we want to move something forward, it is attention. That means you have a great idea, or you have a problem with how something is going. All that are tensions. We never ever do anything without sensing attention. A system that has no tensions is a dead system. So in order to function in a self-organized context, the differentiation to understand what needs to happen in service of the organization's purpose, or what needs to happen in service of me, my relationships, are completely differentiated perspectives. And because of the high level of complexity that we're dealing with, that differentiation helps us break down the complexity into simplicity to be more accurate in our actions. So that's the first capacity. The second one we've already discussed is the purpose alignment. That is really important because purpose is broken down from the entire organization into every entity of the organization, circle or roles. So if you fill a role, you need to be aligned with the purpose of that role, of the purpose of the circle and the purpose of the organization, and that's and the rest that we've already spoken about. And the next capacity is the self-realization capacity, which is the capacity to reflect on your own patterns, to get to know yourself better in order to fully step into your authentic power, because you have a high level of autonomy in the way you work. You will work in a self-organizing context. And it's not only stepping into your own authentic power, it is also inviting others into their authentic power, because in a self-organizing context, we shift from having power over to having power with. And we all work together, and we want all together to be powerful to move this forward together. And the last, the fourth core capacity is the capacity of inner leadership, which is one of the core, which is almost the core capacity to understand how you shift from predict and control to sense and respond. It is the capacity to be present in the moment, to be connected, and to lean into the next moment from there. We need, as people and as role fillers, we need to be able to sense what is needed now and respond. And therefore, we need to be very clearly connected also with the wisdom that is within us. We need to be connected to the source of that wisdom. And we work a lot with embodiment, because the language of that source is very, very nicely explored and experienced through embodied practices, and also mindfulness practices that are absolutely necessary to develop that level of inner leadership. So those are the four core capacities that you will expand, and many of you are holding a lot of this already. Of course, we don't know that. So we don't say develop it, start with it, because that is very rarely the case. The question is, which of those capacities do you need to expand for yourself in order to feel fully comfortable in that way of working? Did that answer your question, Tanya?
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Thank you for the question.
All right, Faith.
I just want to mention that what Christiana just explained is why I decided to choose Evolution at Work to help us navigate this through this change. As you know, I've been interested in holacracy for one, and I just got a ping from one of you about, it seems like we've had a lot of changes in Athena group, because mostly it's just me like trying to figure things out and then changing things on a whim, because it's like, this isn't working, let's change this. The reason I've contracted with Evolution at Work to help us go through this process is because there is a structure. And so I was attracted to the holacracy structure as an organizational framework, but to me, there was something missing, several things missing. And this is what ENCODE and Evolution at Work brings in. It is everyone. We've been conditioned in the society that we live in to operate in a certain way in organizations. And even if we have these big ideas of operating differently, is so internalized. We need the work of language of spaces, which is really, what is it? How do we have to personally change in order to operate in a self-organizing system? That is so crucial in order to operate in a holocratic organizational system. And then thirdly, the other third prong for me that was so attractive is, why would anyone do that if there isn't any financial benefit to doing that? So how do you structure profit sharing or income sharing in a way that benefits the whole? So I just wanted to say that this is distinct. Holacracy is the organizational framework, but the work that we individually have to do to be ready to operate in a self-organizing system like holacracy is really understanding and practicing this differentiation and this personal inner wisdom and the other things that Christiana's mentioned. That's why I hired them.
Thanks, Faith.
Thanks, Faith.
So, sorry, go ahead. I wonder then, Christiana and Peter, if you can talk a little bit about, I mean, you talk about the steps, that phase, but where do you guys come in terms of the things that you help us to move through those phases? Like what does that look like in terms of the work that you guys do to move us through those different steps or phases, or to help us navigate that journey?
Yeah, so basically in the forms of advisory and coaching. So of course it will be you doing the actual work, and then us bringing in the experience we have so far. But it's and it's a lot more than that. It's bringing in actual practices and structures that you can rely on. It's not just us talking to you. So. So it's offering that. So knowing, for instance, adopting holacracy, what are the steps there, the concrete steps to take. So we offer simply pointers to that. So the order, it will be you guys doing it, but it's good to know, okay, what is the order in what to do things in. And then with language spaces as a practice as well. I like to compare it with driving lessons. So you can buy a shiny new car, holacracy, for your organization. But then what people then often forget is, well, people also need to learn how this is. And I don't know about you, but when I remember my first driving lessons, it felt horrible. I thought this is not, humans are not supposed to do this. That's how I felt in the beginning. And so it's a really, it doesn't feel natural in the beginning. But that's just in the beginning. Now it feels completely natural to me. It's hard for me to go back. But it is a learning phase. So that is what we have developed, the self-organizing analogy of driving lessons, which is the language of spaces. And then there's a bunch of other tools as well we will be developing for what we call the people context. How do you structure that? Christiana.
Yeah, and we will be with you because it is a shift in many, many ways, but primarily a shift in behavior of how work gets done. And so this is, and you can count on us to hold the space, because from neuroscience is how we learn to shift one behavior to another is simply by repetition, and we don't easily do that. And if you're not held to the practice, because it is a practice that also means that will take you through a phase of letting go of old beliefs and old patterns. And so when our system tends to fight back when we are asked to let go of something. And so Peter and I will be holding the frame and holding the space to be there for you, to get you into practice and to be there for you when it gets difficult. That's sort of the coaching that Peter was talking about. So it's the advisory. Evolutionary work will define more a roadmap more clearly as far as we always can, and that will kind of grow together with the work as it goes on. That's one thing. We will introduce the practices, and we will facilitate, for example, first governance. So what does that mean? That means that everybody who is involved defines the work with which the reality, as much as we can, the reality of the work that we need to do now in order to move that forward. And that we help you build that and translate that into a first holarchic structure. And then when you have that first holarchic structure, it's called initial circle structure. Then people can fill the roles that have come out of that, and then the practice can begin. So we will facilitate that. We will take you through that. We will then show you how to move forward, how the system learns to develop in small, incremental, adaptable steps, how to facilitate that. So this will all be the work of evolution at work, and also being there for you when you need personal support in how to go through this shift, which is really clearly a language of spaces processes, as some of you know them and others will experience them.
Great. So I see a question from Larissa. It says, let's hear more about sharing money. How does that work? Yeah, there's so much to say about how that works. I guess the question is about how that works in a for-purpose enterprise. Well, up till that point, until you get to a for-purpose enterprise, it's simply taking contributions into account and tracking them. But then once you get a for-purpose enterprise, there's a lot of benefits coming with it in terms of instruments on how to share profits. And the first way in which that works is to come up with an earnings plan, and ENCODE will help you develop that. So what an earning plan is, okay, how do you structure that? How do you account for everybody's contribution in a fair way along different components? And I don't know what would make sense to you. But to give you an example, things like proximity to purpose will be into that. You will see in an organization some people are closer aligned to the purpose, have a bigger impact purpose-wise. So that's accounted for. And then other things, like if you bring in rare skills, that is accounted for. But the goal is really to come to a fair distribution of that. And so that gives you a monthly sum that we call P units. So P units stands for profits. These are short-term profits interest, and give you right to a monthly draws of profits that are available. So that's in relation to what you bring to the table. And then there's an option, or in the case if there's not sufficient profits to pay all those P units. So some of the P units can then be converted to D units, deferred interest. And those are midterm interest. So they will be paid out at some point in the future, more than a month, probably like a year or so or longer. And because there's a little bit more risk involved in that, they bear interest. So these are interest-bearing instruments. And then there's the C units, which is the classic shares. So that's something to figure out who will own how many shares in its for-purpose enterprise, and that's equity. So C units corresponds to equity. Yeah, Christiana?
I think something that we haven't mentioned is the big difference between a conventional legal structure, let's put it that way, even when practicing holacracy, is that that organization might have employees. The for-purpose enterprise has no employees. Everybody who is part of the for-purpose enterprise is a legal partner and an investor. And investment doesn't only mean money. We invest our time, our talent, our energy. We might invest money, but or any investment, we might seed IP into the organization and receive an exchange for that. So all that is considered investment, and there are different levels of units that will account for your investment. Long-term, mid-term, and short-term. And I think, I mean, we have spoken a little bit about that in a call prior. This is way down the line. I think earlier, and maybe, I don't know, Peter, maybe earlier than the FPE, implementation, there probably might be something like an earnings plan, because there will have to be some level of clarity on where money comes in and where money goes out.
Yeah, that's not unlikely. Yeah, so, but just to make sure the units as M code defines them will only be there once, because they're in the operating agreement. But yeah, I can see your point. But it's simply as the need arises, of course.
So Peter, can I give an example, and you can tell me how this fits in there? And I know there's some questions, and I wonder if maybe you can use it as an example. So for example, Faith contracted me to do some marketing work earlier in the year, right? And then she had to tighten finances. So then she came back to me and said, okay, I need to reduce kind of my commitment with you. And we came up with some sort of an agreement, and part of that agreement, for example, is me sort of saying, okay, I'll give you more time now, and I'm willing to take the risk to see how things evolve, and then you can pay me later. But I'm vested in, and I want to continue to do some of this work.
Yep.
I believe in it, even though I'm not getting paid now. Or I'm going to give you, I'll give you a different rate because I'm interested, and I'm willing to take that risk, and we can see if in the future there's a way to compensate that. So in the for-purpose enterprise, you'd have a way to sort of track that, and there would be sort of units given, and it is sort of like I'm investing, and I'm taking that risk that I may not actually receive anything if things don't go well, but I have a vested interest in it going well, obviously, because then I've put that time that's worth my money, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a really interesting game, because now you're working in the FBE, you're doing the work, but you're also an investor. And then it gets funny, because now you have an opportunity to help the organization financially by saying, well, I don't need that much cash this month, so let me have a couple of D units there, deferred payments. It's actually almost like a loan from the organization. So you're extending a loan to the organization so it has more cash to operationalize things. So the survivability of an FBE is actually increased. You don't have to go to a bank in that case. You can just rely on partners in a distributed way, in a very fair way. And there's also no obligation for anybody to participate in it. So if you have the space, partners can do that. And that's also why there's an interest rate to account for the additional risk.
And the thing is, the awesome thing is that everybody's in the game. We're all in this game together. And all the decisions are made for, you have a say in it. You have a process. You have a way to process tensions if you have tensions. We're all, everybody, all in this together. There's no asking Faith whether she will pay me later. There is a process. There is clarity how those things work. There is an agreement around it. And if you have a tension around the agreement, you have a process to improve the agreement, not just for you, but for everybody. So that's the way it works. And there are some really cool questions in the chat box to be answered.
Yeah, I do see. So Austin has a question about participation during the exploration building phase. So Austin, what's your question?
So thank you. What I'm sort of getting out of this conversation is that there's going to be the diaper changing phase, which is us putting this together, and that's more messy and difficult, and there's uncertainty there. And then once we get to a for-purpose enterprise and we've reinvented ourselves, there's kind of there's systems for everything, and that there's more clarity, and there's this kind of how do I say it? Almost guarantee of inclusive practices, or it sounds like that's well thought out and well developed. I'm just, as someone who personally has lived her life much as like, I'm the workhorse, I'm going to do it all by myself because it needs to get done right now, and I know how to do it, and trying to like break out of that mindset, which perpetuates white supremacy culture. I'm just curious, I know you all said that it started out with, it really took 3 people who had the will and the time and the passion to build out ENCODE. I guess I'm curious about whether or not, because I don't have the answer to this, because I have just done in the past, I've perpetuated systems where it's like just a handful of people have to get down to it and do it, and then we can be inclusive. I'm just curious about pushing back on that, and are there ways to make the exploration and building phase itself more inclusive, or allow for people who don't have the social or financial capital to fully invest in being the workhorses who bring it all together? Are there channels and opportunities for those people to bring their input and voices to those 3 core people? I just want to, in my mind, philosophically, I'd like to believe that there's a way to build this in the beginning without it losing that inclusivity piece, which I feel is core to the enterprise itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely. So it's inclusive from day one, from this moment on. So it's just like everybody's invited to this call. So the invitation, the door is wide open. And it's up to people to step up. And that was our experience as well in the beginning. Some people chimed in and helped us, but in less significant ways than some others. So that's welcomed. So that's not pushed. It's not pushed against.
Yeah, I guess I would just want to push back on that. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead, Austin.
Yeah.
I guess I just want to push back on that because I feel like there are, like, it's very common in professional settings to feel like, okay, we've sent out an email, and everyone should have that in their inbox. Therefore, everyone should have known, and that's us being inclusive, and that's us engaging. But for different people of different cultures, of different backgrounds, or just ways of being that may not reach everybody, or and I'm just thinking about as Athena is taking on new members, how are we, like, I see Abby's here, which is wonderful, and she's pretty new. But yeah, it's not, there's 16 of us, and there's more of us, and I know we're all really busy. I'm just thinking about, like, the people who aren't here on this call, like, maybe they're not on this call because they don't care, but they're all Athena contractors, so I feel like they all have some sort of skin in the game. So yeah, I'm just like wanted to bring that up as just a thought, like how can we include people who are not just on this call, I guess, and because they might be seeing things or have ideas about the purpose that we may not see, given our positionality.
Great. I think Christiana wants to say something.
Yeah. And Peter, please follow up if I forget something. So there is in the process right now, there is no exclusion. Everybody got the videos. Everybody will get the recording of this, I guess. And then there is a point in time where there is a yes or a no. And that doesn't mean it's a yes and a no forever. You say yes, and after a couple of months, you find out, no, this doesn't fit. That is a reality. But one thing you have to understand, and I think that is crucial to be clear from the first moment on, from the organizational perspective, there is an inside and an outside. Because an organization is an entity it is a system that has an inside and an outside. So you are either a role filler serving the purpose of the organization, or you are a collaboration partner, which would be outside. So the clarity of relationships is going to increase. Now, probability is really big that there will be a role in the organization that has the accountabilities around juggling the relationships with the partners. And there might be different partners, I don't know, right? Like it is now. But there's bound to be either a role or a circle, or I don't know what will come up as necessary to really have the relationships with the people who are still in the community of whatever. I don't know what it's going to be called. See, it's really hard to predict that, right? And that will be juggled, and there will always be communication processes, and everything. It will show up what is needed in order to let the structure and the organization fulfill its purpose. That's just think. And Faith?
What I heard, yes, everything Christiane said, but what I heard Austin say was the invitation. This is not an exclusionary process. But what I heard Austin say is, in order to be inclusive at this moment, perhaps the email communication, that's how I have been including everyone is through email, perhaps that has a certain, that doesn't reach everyone for a number of reasons. So in order to be as inclusive as possible, something that I can do, or maybe collectively some of us all could do, is think of different communication ways to make sure that all the current members understand what's going on if email is not the right communication tool. Moving forward, and we'll have the structures in place where we can have this conversation and make sure. But I think, Austin, your point is this is an important transition time. We're making important decisions. Are we communicating that in a way where everyone in the partnership is able to hear and participate and actually make that choice? And right now, the only communication I've used is email. So maybe it's a phone call. Maybe I can help people, maybe you can help me or others can help me make the phone calls. So that's what I heard.
Yeah, thank you, Faith.
Yep. So it's balancing a couple of things. That's part of the game. It's clarity. So clarity on relationship, like Christiana said, at any point in time, but also making that dynamic. You can also change it at any time. People can change their decisions at any time. So the system can really handle all of that. And then it's also balancing being inclusive and at the same time keep driving things forward. So it's not waiting on other people too much, just drive things forward and at the same time be inclusive. If anybody wants to join at any point, that's fine. But you will not wait too long for people to make up their minds. Okay, so a couple of answers. Michelle.
So this, for me, brings up the purpose alignment piece. Because if the purpose is to include everyone, then that's the focus, I'm assuming, and their roles developed and that sort of thing. If the purpose is more focused on comprehending and living into self-organization, or something like that, self-organized, and then bringing that into the world, inclusion might look different. Yeah, so I'm just kind of trying to see how inclusion and the purpose meet in this organizational structure. You know, if we were working on, if our purpose was around, if it is around social equity, if like that's our purpose, then what are the things that magnetize towards the organization? That sort of thing. So maybe as we're really getting clarity on our purpose together, or aligning.
I think there's an additional element to that. Yes, to everything you were saying. But there's also the purpose of the organization, and then there's you guys being explicit on your shared values, which is something to do with the people, not the organization, but is equally is also important. And so in being inclusive may or may not be a shared value you have. So that is something that you then act upon. That's something to be explicit about. You want to have a conversation about if that's important. And then the other values you care about, and how do you balance those?
And where is that conversation happening exactly in your roadmap around the purpose and the shared values and all that? Is that, I'm assuming it's coming soon. Because
I think purpose discovery, having that conversation, sensing into the purpose. I have to take a look at Christiana, where she thinks that would happen at what time period. It's also up to you guys how fast you guys are moving and want to, for instance, do a purpose discovery session. Different ways to go about it. But having clarity on that purpose informs a lot, will also inform other people. Okay, is this something I'm excited about, this purpose? Do I want to participate in this or not? So yeah, probably sooner than later, but maybe Christiana has more to say.
No, I'm just waiting. Abby has been having her hand up for a while.
Oh, thanks. I know we're coming up to the end of the call. I guess just wanted to, ask the question around inclusion, sort of dig into that a little bit. And a lot of questions are popping, so I'll get those as follow-up in writing. But I think that, the sort of who's at the table and in the systems thinking principle of structure drives behavior. So how is the table set? Who's at the table will really make a huge difference on what comes out of this. And I'm new again to Athena, so I don't know who is there. I can look on the website and see the listing of people. I can see who's on the call, but I don't know who else is out there. And I don't know how porous how porous the bubble is right now. So that if there are other people that might be in the community, for example, we live in an area where we have such rich relationships, some of us, with the tribes, and such cultural resources in that sense that could inform this conversation. How do so I just don't know what that boundary looks like, but I would weigh in that I think that for who we are, from what I understand of what Athena is and what it's seeking to do in the world, that magnet that's pulling, that we're looking at serving diverse communities, and whether it's in health or environmental justice or climate change or governmental change or what have you. So how will that, I guess, what is that boundary? Who's in this that can be invited to the table? Then it is the question of what are the tools and ways of getting them to the conversation in meaningful ways. Thank you.
Peter, you want to say something?
Yeah, briefly, and my recommendation would be, as much as possible, to open it up. If you see other people that you think would be interested, to get them in. They would have to get some catching up to do, obviously. But it's really up to you guys to determine how to set the boundaries at this point in time. My personal recommendation would be not to set too much boundaries, keep it open, because the process, it will sort itself out anyway. So also looking at Faith a little bit, what her ideas are here, or intention.
So I see it kind of like, you know, wide, and then we come down. So right now the invitation is very open, and the invitation is to members and other people that I've talked to that we've done a lot of work with, that are interested in the direction we're going. So right now it's like this, but at some point in time, on this timeline that Peter showed, there's going to be a decision of, are you inside the organization, developing the organization, or are you outside, which goes to one of the questions. Is like, what if you're not inside? What kind of changes does that look like for those on the outside of the organization? Probably not a whole lot, depending, for at least at the beginning, there's probably not a whole lot. So that's how I would say it. It's like, let's be really intentional about how to be really open right now, and using all of our different communications, with whether it's email, and thank you Austin for bringing up that doesn't always resonate with everyone. So, and I'm opening that to all of you too. It's like, who might be a good investor with time, talent, or money? Let's bring them to this conversation. Let's do that now, big, and then let's narrow down of, okay, who's in? Is that an accurate, am I still in line with?
Yep.
Oh yeah. So.
And
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Can I mix in, because there's some questions that are really cool in the chat box. So just looking at the time at this moment. Peter, you want to answer Larissa's questions of how proximity?
Yeah, I do, but she's away from keyboard, she says. She's taking a break. But I think I'm kind of on the fence. I think it would also be really useful to hear, to start a closing and to hear people's reflections on maybe their intent. Say, yes, this sounded, or some would be interested in following this up, or so what are your thoughts, Christiana? Or does it make more sense to answer questions?
I'm with you, and I just want to say to Lori, everything is completely transparent. I'm just referring to one of the questions.
Yeah, it's all as much transparency as you can stomach, as we always say.
Yep.
It's completely
Okay.
transparent.
Yeah,
So.
otherwise I'm really great. I'm really with you.
Okay, cool. Let's start a closing round. We have about 9 minutes left, so request is to keep it short. Just general reflection. This is sound good to you? Interesting to take next steps, or maybe not? Just general reflections. Let's see, how did we do this? Let's start at the top of the list I have here. Let's start with Abby.
This is fantastic. It's I'm with Devin. This is like candy and chocolate and all good organic vegetables and all wrapped into one. So I'm very interested in supporting the process and being part of the conversation.
Great, thank you. Amber.
I was feeling myself being very on edge about some of the ways the conversations were happening today, and wondering, I'm feeling a little less sure about being in than I was before. And I really, I guess I'll leave it at that. Still very interested in learning more about it.
Great, thank you. Austin.
Yeah, I think the comment that I made, or the question/comment I made earlier, kind of the tone of that is kind of where I'm sitting right now. I have questions and concerns, and I just want to make sure that through the whole process, not just getting to the for purpose enterprise and being in a for purpose enterprise, that Athena is living into its values, or how I understand its values now, and like from just what for having conversations with Faith, what's important to her as an owner. And that might be different from other members, but I think like what Michelle was saying, getting on that same page, for me, it seems like a complete oxymoron for for Purpose Enterprise to not have inclusion at the center of value-wise, because that's the whole point of it in my mind. So yeah, I think if inclusion isn't centered, then I'm not, I don't think this is the place for me. But I'm really excited about exploring this more and learning more and seeing where it's going to go.
Awesome, thank you. Ava.
Okay. All right. So I am a very curious person, so I do want to learn a whole lot more. And from what I've heard so far, I'm looking at different aspects of organizational input, having everyone basically bring their gifts and out make sure that everybody is in alignment. I am totally in agreement with that. And then, like I said, just learning more about what it takes to actually push this forward, and in a positive manner where everybody will be, or where everybody's on the same page. Everybody has an understanding of what we're actually doing, right? So the first step to that for me is to get to know a little bit more about what we're heading for.
Okay, great. Devin.
Yeah, thank you so much, Peter, Christiane, everyone for joining. Faith, for your courageous leadership to kind of like guide us on this journey. And I just want to say I'm more inspired and fired up than I was even before. All of the stuff Abby said about vegetables. I don't know about vegetables, but all the candy part, yes, absolutely. Yeah, really fired up, really excited. I'm really excited to go along the journey just because I'm curious about that stuff and excited to be a part of it. And then also potentially excited to explore helping the organization or, at the end too, whatever this structure ends up looking like, and exploring both, but excited for everything in between too. So yeah, very appreciative. So thank you.
Cool, thanks. Jane.
Yes, so I am very new to the organization and not completely clear about my role in the organization at this point. So I am looking forward to exploring this, but until I have more clarity about the purpose and the roles, I really won't know, how it will play out. So it's an emergent situation in my case, if you will.
Okay, good. Larissa, are you back? I'll come back to Larissa at the end. Lori.
Hi, feeling good. I'm as excited and interested as I was before. I definitely feel that it's going to be really important for us to master the differentiation process. I can see how that will be a capacity we're going to need to build, and that it'll be interesting to see what we arrive at for a purpose, because I could see a lot of people sort of deselecting at that point, just depending on where things land and if it aligns with their personal purpose. So yeah, I'm a little bit scared, but mostly I think it'll be a fun and really interesting challenge and process. And I'm looking forward to participating.
Wonderful. Mari.
Hi, thank you. That was incredibly interesting. Thanks for all the contributions and the really, really good questions that really sort of helped me to see clearly the possibilities of this new organization. I'm very interested in taking next steps. I'm in, and I really want to thank Faith for just being the springboard for taking this plunge, and I'd like to participate and help in any way I can. Thank you.
Awesome. Megan. You're muted.
I was trying out the space bar to see if it was actually going to temporarily unmute me, but it did not work. I am, well, first of all, thank you. Thank you all, actually, members and presenters alike. I'm very curious to see where this goes, and have so many questions that I have faith will get answered along the way, and I commit to being a positive contributor to helping to shape that, and recognizing that at some point down the road there will be a point where I'll make a final decision of whether I'm in or out, but happy to be part of the process, especially
Great.
at the first stage.
Awesome. Thank you. Let's go to Faith.
Gratitude all around. I think what I'm holding right now is I'm noticing all the questions in the chat, and then others that are percolating, and just wanting some venue or clarity on before we close out altogether of what's next. When are we going to come together, and how might we process the questions that are coming? So that's where I'm at right now, along with, I can't tell you how exciting and scared and happy I am right now.
Okay, thank you. Who is again next year? Sorry, I forgot your name. I want to give you a chance as well.
Kate.
Okay, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm going to echo what a lot of people have said, which is excited, and I suppose trepidation would be a good word, being someone who has been an employee my entire life, including now, to see particularly how that will fall financially for me personally, and what that transition looks like. So I'm excited to see how this moves forward, and curious, and just ready to see what next steps are.
Great, thank you. Paul.
Hi, yes, and yes, thank you all. It's been interesting. It continues to be interesting. I know that I've always been interested in self-organizing systems, holacracy, and I know that there's something about Athena that needs to change. I'll be 100% transparent and say I'm not sure this is the change. I go into it curious. I go into it with a lot of skepticism, and I'm going to continue to be open. Yeah, I guess that's all I have to say.
Sounds great. Michelle.
So I'm sitting with the sensations of the trepidation. It has a little dread to it, knowing I'm also full in, but it's like I jumped on the ship, yay! And then I was like, oh, wait a minute. Maybe we're not all really, I don't know you. And maybe you don't share my values, but we're on the ship. So how are we gonna, and so the equity piece is really a key, because that work, that it's like, it's transformative, and it's not easy work. And if we don't have an alignment of purpose, but some of us, maybe even not me all the time, is gonna do that work, but the organization's really not purposefully doing equity work or environmental work, or then you know, what is the fabric of this vessel? So that there's dread and trepidation there. I really want to know who these members are and what their values are and how the purpose is aligned. And so there's more members. I'm a new member too, and another member, and I don't know how we're all aligned as one big Athena group. And I hear people, and I really value what you say, and I feel like, yes, but I want to have that conversation and get into my alignment and the purpose alignment. So that's where I'm at. Animated. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Tanya.
Well, I think I echo a lot of things, but personally, I'm excited by this. I love this type of work, and I'm fascinated by our own process. Right? It's sort of one thing to read about things and to hear about things, and it's another to be in it. And feeling the different feelings and sensing how different folks are feeling within the process. And so it's fascinating, and there's lots of emotion. I'm incredibly curious to see how it actually works. Like, and there is a little bit of trepidation, I think, for me in terms of like, can it work? And I really hope that it, right? Like, I really want it, and I hope that it can work, because wouldn't that be an amazing thing? But I can also sense, oh my God, there's all this stuff that has to happen in order for that to actually be true. So I'm just curious. I'm in terms of like what's next, and I want to help shape what's next. And I also have boatloads of questions, just loads and loads of questions. So I'm sure that they'll also get answered along the way. So thank you.
Okay, great. I see that Larissa can't speak right now, so that's awesome. She says she's grateful and learned a lot today. Right, so let's go. I think I got everybody else, so let's go to Christiana.
Wow. I'm glad it's not bedtime yet, because I'm so full of energy, and there's so much. The things that you said, the questions, the conversations, I think I'm going to have to go out and go for a walk now, because that is just, boy, I just love this. And the bandwidth of energy from, boy, I'm all in, to healthy skepticism. If you don't have that all in the room, something would really be missing. So I am really, really so appreciative of everything, of your contributions, of giving us the opportunity to speak and answer your questions, because really that's the most important thing. And I know there are so many more, and boy, I wish we could spend hours. So it's going to be a question of how can we spend more time in digging deeper into these questions, and just be with you and hold the space for these things to clarify. Faith, thank you for inviting us to this. Peter, awesome working with you as always. I can't wait to dig further into this with all of you. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thanks, Christiana. Yeah, I'll keep mine short. I'm aware we're running a few minutes over. I think it's worth it. This is why I love what I do. This is just such an awesome result, hearing all of your reflections, positive. And I get the skepticism. I'm with Christiana. Yeah, be skeptical, please. This is a big thing. And all your contributions are needed, your voices are needed to be heard. So don't be shy putting that in, make things better. It's what we call processing tensions, right? That's the game. So all of that is welcome. And we will be looking at next steps, and I'm sure you'll hear very soon about that. So thank you all. Thank you, Faith, for being here, and looking forward to continuing the journey with all of you.
Peter, will you copy some of the questions that were in the chat, just so that they don't get lost? Because there was a bunch of, I hadn't seen them, but there's a bunch of really good ones, and part of that might be part of the next steps. I know we all have a bunch of other questions, but there were some really good ones already.
Yeah, I already copied them, so yep.
Me too.
So we'll get the recording out, we'll share the questions, I'll reconvene with Christiana and Peter of next steps, and we'll be in communication. And feel free to email, call me with your questions as well.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thank you all, and have a good day.
Bye.